Okay, so now we're moving on to the genetics section, what I would consider genetics, and then specifically what we would consider Mendelian genetics. And Mendelian genetics is named after a person named Gregor Mendel, who did a lot of studying of genetics traits. Now, this person studied traits before genetics was a word, before we knew about DNA and inheritance through that type of thing, and he was a monk. So not a quote-unquote scientist, but he did scientific studies and just was collected a ton of data and made some really interesting observations, and through those observations got to understand heredity and how traits are passed from parents to offspring. So there's a lot of vocab here, but we'll be using it a lot through the next 3 weeks, so you'll get used to it. But things like genes. Genes, we haven't learned about DNA yet. That's actually next. But DNA, remember, codes for proteins. And so genes are going to be the sections of DNA that code for proteins. Alleles are versions of genes. So, eye color is the example I gave, but so you're going to have a gene for eye color. Now, it's more complex than that. You have more than one gene for eye color. But let's just say there's a gene for eye color, and then you have the allele, which is the brown or blue or hazel eye color, right? So you have what is the allele for that? And then the idea in Mendelian genetics is that, because this doesn't occur for all traits, but in Mendelian genetics inheritance, we have certain alleles that are dominant, okay? And so if you have, let's say, again, this isn't really the way it works, but let's just say, for instance, just to explain the concept, let's say that the allele for brown eyes is dominant to the allele for blue eyes. So let's say you have one of each versions of the gene, because you're going to have two versions of every gene because you have two parents, biological mother, biological father, and each parent contributed one allele, a version of that gene. So if you got a brown-eyed allele and a blue-eyed allele, if the brown-eyed is dominant, then you're going to have brown eyes, not blue eyes. Okay, so there's other types of inheritance, but Mendelian genetics just talks about that dominant recessive thing. Okay, that was just my little explanation here. We're going to start working on this worksheet now. So let's take an example of guinea pigs, and we'll consider these terms. If black fur is dominant to white fur in guinea pigs, I don't even know 100% if it is or not, but in this example, let's consider that it is. We'll use, since black fur is dominant, let's use a capital B to represent the allele for black fur. And then you'd think, oh, I'll use the letter W for white fur, but actually you don't. You use the same letter, but a lowercase, to represent the recessive allele. All right, the guinea pig genotypes. So again, a guinea pig's going to have two parents, biological mother, biological father. And so if you have two alleles, big B and little b, these are the three possible genotypes or combinations of alleles that the guinea pigs could have. This is it. Big B, little b, or little b. So we use terms to describe those. So heterozygous. Hetero means one of each or different. So the heterozygous version of those genotypes would be that one, where you get one of each. Sometimes that's called a hybrid as well. Homo means both the same. And dominant would be the uppercase. And again, homozygous recessive would be the lowercase. And again, sometimes these are referred as pure because they are like purebred, meaning it always, or true breeding would be another phrase, because they are both the same. So sometimes you'll see those terms. Okay. So those are the genotypes. The phenotype is just the word we use. Like the phenotype would be to have black fur or white fur. It's the physical expression. You can always see it. Like your phenotype might be to have high cholesterol. Well, I can't see that. But it's the physical expression of those genes. So let's try to solve a problem. And we're going to take this next page to solve this. Normally these problems are pretty quick to solve, but I want to walk you through it. So, typical question. We're given a trait. Guinea pigs, black fur color is dominant to white. Okay. A female guinea pig, heterozygous for fur color, is mated with a homozygous recessive male. What are the expected offspring traits in respect to fur color? Okay. Step one, what are the genotypes? Well, the mother is heterozygous, and recall, we just talked about this. Heterozygous means one of each. Father is homozygous recessive. Recessive is the lowercase. Homozygous means both the same. So the mother has a big B and a little b. And when she makes eggs, or gametes that are egg cells, those split up. Okay, each gamete, each egg cell will either get the big B or the little b to pass on. Father, right, is going to make sperm cells, and because the father is homozygous, all those sperm cells are going to have one copy of the little b. All right, then what we're going to do is set up something called a Punnett square, and we'll do these quite a lot. Pretty much each week we'll do different types of Punnett squares based on what we're learning. So if we take those gametes, okay, and place them on a grid, big B, little b, and it doesn't matter if the gender, the female gender can be on the top or the side, doesn't matter. Same with the male gender as we're making these Punnett squares, okay, but we're going to go ahead and create it. We're going to split them up because we are going to have a combination here, right? So this one might combine with that one, this one might combine with that one, this one might combine with that one, or this one might combine with that one. So we're just basically creating a square to show all the possible combinations. So we're going to bring the letters down and across. So these are the offspring. Each one of these is a potential offspring genotype. Okay. And if you look at them, you're like, oh, look at that. I've got half of them are that, and half of them are that. And so it kind of gives you these percentages and probabilities. So the genotype probability is this cross. Genotype are the letter combinations. Well, I've got two genotypes. I've got big B, little b, and little b, little b. And I've got, looks like 50% of each. You could write that as 1/2. You write it as percent, however you prefer. The phenotype probabilities, well, that's going to be black fur. And that's going to be white fur. So 50% black fur probability and 50% white fur probability. Okay, and then I've just got more questions here based on Mendelian trait genetics. So let's look at question 10. If a cell has a pair of alleles, so this would be like a normal cell, not a reproductive cell, has a pair of alleles, identify as big A, little a, what are the chances that a gamete, okay, so I guess this cell is going to go through meiosis. If this undergoes meiosis, what is the chances that a gamete will get big A? Well, this is our probability. There's one of those, and there's two total chances, so half. A cell has 3 pairs of alleles. Okay, we don't even know what the genes are for these alleles, but it's, you know, big A, big B, little b, and big C, little c are the genotypes for those allele combinations. What are the chances that any one gamete will get a little a, little b, and a little c? Well, this is an and statement, so looking at our probability laws, little a, it's either little a or big A, so that's 1/2. It's little b is a 1/2 chance because there's one of those, and little c is a 1/2 chance because there's one of those. It's an and statement, so we're going to multiply them together. So there's a 1/8 chance that you create a gamete with the recessive versions of all 3 of those alleles, if you're talking about them all together. In guinea pigs, black fur is dominant to white fur. We've already said that, but I stated it again here. If a guinea pig has black fur, what are the possible genotypes? Well, that's up top on the sheet as well, but the genotypes for black fur are either heterozygous, black, or homozygous black.